Hello. This video is made as an example to you about the journal entries you'll be doing as your next assignment. This video you're about to see is an old student of mine from a few years ago named Marie, who read the book that you're reading now, John Dewey and the Art of Teaching. These are her journal entries that she made. So just take a look at these videos and try to gather the questions that she asks about Dewey. Jot them down and we'll talk about them after we watch the video. Okay, my name's Marie. This is my first journal entry about John Dewey and the art of teaching. First, let me explain what I'm doing. My name's Marie and I'm an aspiring music teacher. I'm reading about Dewey for the first time. I've divided this book into 3 parts, chapters 1 through 6, 7 through 10, and 11 through 15. And after each of these sections, I'll write a journal entry based on my reactions to each section. As of right now, I'm very skeptical about Dewey's teaching philosophy because I think along the lines of a more traditional teacher. And I've read that Dewey often was criticized for being too liberal, and it said that he was a major component of why schools are the way they are today, in that they don't teach very well. Okay. So, I've just finished reading the first quote in the introduction. Dewey says that teaching is an art form. I guess I would agree. Let me read some more. So, I finished the first section now. Each of the chapters in this book tries to stretch a teacher into the suit of another profession or identity. Teacher as mother, teacher as lover, teacher as gardener. Each of these metaphors have the teacher being important to the lives of students in a different way. I guess that Dewey believed that teachers were more important to the students than just being a teacher. He has them nourishing, loving, comforting, navigating. He has them being friends and parental figures to their students. If they're friends, how can they maintain respect in the classroom? Where do you draw the line? How can you keep control over your classroom if your students don't respect or fear you? And how can you keep an adult-to-child relationship if you're supposed to be their friend? He also reiterates over and over again that not just anyone can be a teacher. You have to have certain qualities. Like, okay, on page 30, right? Page 30. He says, teaching is taxing emotionally and physically, and to be sure, there are those who should not be allowed to work with children and youth. He also says, teachers should love contact with the young. This love obviously involves developing a set of positive relationships, including an enjoyment of interacting with students. And neither pedagogical expertise nor content mastery can overcome a lack of this kind of love. This definitely makes sense, but it seems a little gushy, don't you think? I mean, can't you teach students without loving contact with them? Actually, maybe you can't. Maybe he's right. Now that seems a little commonsensical. Oh, my mother's calling me for dinner. Guess that's the end of my journal entry for now. Alright, well, I'm back. In case you were wondering, dinner was delicious as always. Okay, so this time, for my second entry, I read chapters 7 through 10. These chapters are a little bit different than the others, in that they're less fluffy and philosophical, and more serious. Dewey expresses that teachers are far more than teachers to their students. He says that we're social engineers, constant knowledge seekers, and servants. I had never thought of any of these ideas. How did Dewey come up with them? Did he have a teacher that changed his life and drove him to think this way about educators? They must have not had very good teachers. He says that teachers must be constantly updating their information, and that this is not only as a service to our students, but also because we love to learn. This must be true of teachers. In order to teach something, you have to learn it first, right? Is there any way that you could teach something without knowing it yourself? No, there's really no way, and even if you tried to, you'd learn it in the process of teaching it anyway, which actually might be the best way to learn, if you think about it, because then you have to think about things exactly the way that your students are thinking about them, and each student thinks about things differently. So then you think about things from all different sorts of angles and stuff. That's kind of cool. In these chapters, the authors relate a lot of his ideas to experiences. This is a very constructivist way of thinking, right? Through experiences. They construct meaning on their own through the experiences that they have in class, which is awesome because it means he doesn't like the banking idea either, just like free air. At first, I didn't think what he was talking about had much to do with critical pedagogy. I thought he was just describing the qualities that he thought teachers should have. But now I'm seeing some pretty revolutionary ideas poking out. Is this the origin of constructionism? Is there any way that Freire and Abrahams and everyone like that got their ideas from this book? I mean, not all the ideas. They don't go into much depth in this book, but the very, very origins of the ideas seem to be in here. Alright, well, I guess that's all for now. I'll read the rest of the book and be back tomorrow. Okay, here I am again. So, I finished the book. In Teacher as Wise Physician, I came up with a lot of questions while reading about Dewey's thoughts on impulses. He has an order to them that social happens first, followed by constructive, investigative, and then expressive. But there are so many other possible combinations that these can go in. Isn't talking, interacting, and joining a means of expression? But that's also social. There are overlapping concepts. Couldn't these be combined into one impulse? Dewey also speaks of the meaning of these impulses to individuals. He gets into very progressive ideas here, such as the influence of culture on a student's prior education and their current learning impulses. Are the impulses that he talks about the beginnings of learning styles? Is this what got McCarthy going on the full learning cycle? Or does Dewey think that impulses rely solely on culture and environment and not at all on the brain and chemical makeup of a person? In the chapter Teacher as Builder, the authors pose a question in the margin. What possible dangers are present in the idea of constructing people? And is it worth it for teachers to take this risk? Well, I have a follow-up question. If you're a young person's teacher, how can you avoid at least being a part of their construction? Is it possible for a teacher not to take this risk? Because young minds are not like empty slates, but like clay for molding. If you're molding something, you're changing it, moving it, constructing it. As a teacher, is it not your job to construct people into working, functioning, and excelling citizens of the world? I really liked that question because it made me think. It made me ask more questions. On a whole, I think that Dewey was definitely a leader in educational reform and will be forever. The ideas that he has had, or at least the ones expressed in this publication, are not only revolutionary, but essential for every teacher to keep in mind as they go about their daily routine in the classroom. Although he may not have been on the spot with all of his metaphors, obviously each metaphor can't be perfect, his connections from all these important social jobs to the teacher all make sense in some way, don't they? Is it important for teachers to know that when they've taken on the title of teacher, they've also become a social engineer, diagnostician, servant, mother, gardener, and lover? Although this book didn't express very much about Dewey's thought on how a student should be taught, like physically, in a classroom, it makes very clear Dewey's view on the kind of person who can take this job. Dewey was a very important critical pedagogue because he set up an accurate outline of the perfect teacher, and all aspiring teachers need to be aware of what is expected of them, what kinds of things they need to know, and what kind of jobs that they're also taking on when they take on the job of teacher. In this quote from the conclusion, he says, "We may look forward, therefore, to a society in which teachers are fairly secure and truly free. We can hope that they will be encouraging to attack professional problems in a creative spirit. I foresee the kind of administration which exalts the free and intelligent personality and does not depend on rules, regulations, formal procedures, and prescriptions." He is not the reason why schools are the way they are today. The reason why schools are the way they are today is because no one read this book. No one listened to him because he wanted an administration that let people be free, that let people learn the way that they wanted to learn, and not just tests and statewide tests and all that stuff. Dewey has certainly opened my eyes to the huge responsibility that I have to my society now. I'm really glad that I was assigned to read this book.